Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Journey of You Joycast. If you've been following along, a couple of weeks ago, we had Chris do a solo episode on truth and how it's shaped her life, the magic of the truth, and also her experience throughout her life on the truth and what it means from her lens. And last week, you got to hear Devin's experience with the truth. Um, as you can see, so many different people obviously have so many different experiences. And so today I am going to share my experience of the truth with each of you, just so you get a different perspective and you can understand how differently you might experience it versus someone else, certainly differently than myself and Chris and Devin.
Welcome back to another episode of Joy, the Journey of You podcast. We're your hosts, Devin and Chris, and we're here for joy.
This podcast is your permission slip to reconnect to your inherent joy and to embrace it.
Let's fill up the cosmic joy pot together as we dive in to today's episode.
We are here to share the tools that have worked for us in our life, and hopefully you can work with them, practice them, and see which one feels really resonant for you. And sometimes different days, different moments, each of them might resonate with you. So with that in mind, I wanted to share my truth and also living in untruth. I was grateful to be able to listen to both Chris and Devin's episodes before recording this. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. So as I mentioned in my very first episode with the Joycast, which was, I think, episode 13, where Devin and Chris interviewed me, actually. And I talked a little bit about my background, but not much. So as I said, I'd like to share with you a time in my life when I was living in untruth and see how it lands for you. As Devin has talked about, like, we all come into this world with the influences in our lives, whether it be our community, our parents, the religions that we're exposed to, and our schooling systems, right? And the teachers that we have. And they all, and honestly, another big influence is the type of TV and movies we're exposed to. So for me, a lot of Disney movies have influenced my understanding of what a good life is or how we should live our lives, right? And not that that's all bad, but at that time, it was in the early 90s when I was a child. And so I was exposed to a lot of Little Mermaid, Cinderella, Mulan even, but a lot of the time it was also based on the older Disney movies, Aladdin, which kind of had this damsel in distress, needed savior type of storyline to them, right? And while all of these factors shape and mold our lens and viewpoint of how we see things, how we move through life, the decisions that we make. And so early on in my life, I knew that to be a functioning member of society, a lot of pressure was put on going to school, going to college, getting a job, and buying a house and finding a partner, getting married, having kids. And then you work at the, until you retire. And hopefully one day you enjoy your life in that time frame. Right. And so I went off to college and I did have a little bit of, figuring out what I wanted to do, but it was always in the mindset of getting a career, right? And being in an office job that's very 9 to 5. And so I started off in accounting, mostly because I liked math. and no one told me that accounting wasn't math. So when I found out that it wasn't, I decided to try some different things in college, and I landed on engineering. Um, Seemingly, as a person of Chinese background, there are, a very select few careers that are acceptable and coveted as a Chinese person. And some of them are accounting, engineering, doctoring, and lawyering. So I happened to choose a career that was, or at least a degree that was in line with my Chinese upbringing. And no one ever said that to me outright, especially not my parents. They didn't put any pressure on me to go a certain direction in my career. They just kind of let me figure that out. So that was different than some other Chinese families might have experienced. So I was fortunate in that sense. And I did genuinely like engineering. Part of that also was, I think I really liked getting good grades and being praised for good grades. So that played a factor, but if that was the only factor, I would have just stayed in accounting. So at least, in my college days, I found something that gave me some excitement, right? And made me, motivated me, inspired me to study and that kind of thing. So after college, I graduated and I got a job in the oil and gas sector. And that was the predominant sector where I live. And it was where I could get a job. And I stayed in oil and gas in engineering for the next 12 years. It was a great job. It provided me a lot of safety, a lot of security. And I was a big saver. So I really liked to store money and became my security blanket, right? However, in the meantime, I could always feel a sense of unease. I didn't love it all the time, honestly. For those of you who know me, I am a self-proclaimed tree hugger, and I feel like I've been that way since I was a child. And over time, it's just grown more and more prominent within me. And with that, like being in the engineering career for 12 years, I could start to feel anxiety come up every now and then. It was kind of infrequently at first, maybe once a year, maybe once every 6 months. Nothing I couldn't move through, right? And handle and just move along with my day. Because at that time, the possibility of change wasn't even in my field of vision. And when it got brought up to me, it was far too scary to lean into. It wasn't until after 2020 that I reconnected with Devin in a way that I hadn't in the past. We've both been on our own journeys in terms of healing and delving into accessing more joy and the truth, honestly, being able to know what that means and how it applies. And so when I reconnected with Devin, she introduced me to other people who were also on the same path. And I was sitting in this group meditation, which I wasn't really used to, hadn't really done. Sure, I had taken my yoga teacher training and I'd sat in meditation, admittedly not so frequently. But this was the first time I had done a group shared space. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't really trust what I was getting. So in this session, I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, let's see what happens. And I said, okay, universe, like, what's my purpose? And it didn't take very long. There was a clear voice that said, duh, Felicia, you're here to save the planet. And I was like, what? And again, I wasn't really trusting of this process. Like I thought that that was just my mind coming in and telling me what I wanted to hear or something like this. So it took me a while to keep going in that process and start to learn how to trust what I was receiving in these quiet meditations, in shared space, or just learning how to receive the truth, my own truth. And when that message came through, I knew at that time that that was true. So, uh, probably 8 more months go by of me in the oil and gas industry. And I started having pretty severe, not severe, I started having panic attacks. And they lasted longer than I knew that they would. They're probably shorter than I think they were, but they were intense. And it felt like I had just run a marathon, in a very short period of time. And so they really wiped me out. And I knew at that time, like I had to make a change. And if I didn't, my body was going to tell me that truth or show me in all the ways it was trying to. And so in Chris's truth episode, she talks about how the body has access to 400 billion bits of information and the mind has access to, I'm not sure the number she said, let's say it's 40, right? 400, significantly less bits of information. We want to logic our way through all the things. So I kept pushing off over the years, I kept pushing off this anxiety, this truth for me. And it came to a head and it was like, Felicia, you can no longer do this the way that you're doing. It's not sustainable for you and it's not in your truth. And so I had to do a lot of soul searching and muddy my way through some things, again, understanding truth and what it was. And eventually, still learning, honestly. And I hope that we're all still learning through all points of our lives. But as we practice it, like with anything else, we'll get more in tune and more in tune with the truth and what that feels like, looks like, and is really. So that's my experience with a big truth. These truths can be big or small. And again, like in Chris's episode, right, it can deal with things as simple as, should I hang my laundry outside to dry or is it going to rain? I, in fairness, have not experienced it at that level to be able to know that truth at that level. So let me share with you some of the practices that I've received, experienced in my life, and you can see what lands for you and if that feels right. So with all that said, let's go ahead and take some time to come into the body. So what I want you to do is, if you're in a comfortable place, again, if you're driving, like Devin always says, if you're driving, maybe pause this and you can use it later, or just listen and see how it feels. But if you're in a safe place to do so, I invite you now to close your eyes and let's take a deep, nice inhale and sigh it out. Feel yourself really drop down into your body. So keep lengthening those inhales and your exhales. And then really ground into your body. If you're new to grounding, or if you'd like more guidance, right, what I want you to feel is your seat and the chair or the floor below you, maybe a bed. Feel all the aspects of your body that are touching or supported by something underneath you. If you're sitting cross-legged, it could be your legs. If you're sitting on a chair, it could be your feet on the ground. Letting yourself sink into the place below you. Letting yourself, as hard as it might be, let go of any preconceived notions and any expectations. It might take a few tries where you come back to this practice before you get anything, before you feel anything different. And that's fine too. Right? So wherever we start, or if we're seasoned, come along. And let's start with a very well-known truth for you. So something that I like to practice with is, okay, my name is Felicia Wong. So say your very true statement to yourself out loud if you can, in your head if you don't want to do it out loud. It's totally fine. And then see where in your body, what it feels like. My name is. So when I have a definitively true statement for me, I feel it light up in my upper chest. And when I say light up, to me, it feels like pins and needles. Okay, so it feels a little tingly. It also feels expansive, like there's more space in my chest. So let's see if that space, that yes, has a color. Mine's like a soft golden light. Okay, so catalog what that feels like for you. Let that sink in, soak in. And then let's pick a statement that's not true. Okay, so for me, a statement that's not true. Let's pick a silly one, right? Like the sky is green. Does the sky ever turn green? It has to be definitively not true. Okay, this might be controversial, but I am a dog, right? Like I am a human being in my own truth. So I am a dog feels not true for me. Okay, so let's come back into the body. Take a nice deep breath. And then I'll say out loud, I, Felicia Wong, am a dog. So pick your untrue statement. Really feel into what that feels like. Okay. So my untrue statement feels a little sticky. Feels darker, like a dark, deep black or purple, purpley black. For those of you who are old enough to know this, there was a movie called, was it Fern Gully? Right? And they had this evil substance that was dark and tarry. And that's what mine kind of feels like. It's still in my chest region, but it's kind of more condensed and concentrated. Right? And it just feels a little tight. So I'll say my untrue statement again. Say your untrue statement. Ooh, okay, nice. All right, shake that up. Breathe into your chest. You can even tap on your chest if you want to just flush that out. Okay. Oh, we're going to brush that off too. Okay, shaking it out of my shoulders. That was heavy. That was sticky. And what I'm trying to do is feel these statements, the truth and the untruth, without judgment. It's very hard because as humans, we like to categorize everything, right? So I'm trying to experience that with openness and curiosity and be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, the true statement feels light, it feels expansive, it feels tingly, like excitement a little bit. And the untrue statement feels heavy, thick, makes my shoulders want to like come in and sticky. Okay. So now that you know what both a yes and a no feel like, and if you're having trouble with that, have no fear. I definitely did when I first started these practices, and they felt like, come on, are you seriously telling me you feel any different? Like, I don't know. This sounds kind of hokey. Um, and thankfully, I had people in my life who were very supportive of this and helped me keep practicing. Right. And now that I know, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's quicker to tune in to what feels good and what feels again, let's not try to label it good and bad, right? Like what feels like a yes and what feels like a no in my truth. So let's pick a statement that you have a question, sorry, not a statement, a question that you have, right? And let's stick to that yes or no train. Like, let's see, tonight I was thinking of going to practice bowling. So I'll feel into like, do I go practice? And I'd like for you to avoid the word should in this case, because should, we can talk about that in a whole nother episode, but it has a very different feel and vibe to it and makes it more of an obligation. So I'm going to try to ask it as open-endedly as possible. So, do I go practice later today? Now you can ask your own statement that you would like a yes or no about. Something not too pressured, okay? Something a little lighter that can be easily felt into. Okay. So the answer for me is yes. And now sometimes just a warning or a caveat that if we're too close to a situation, right, we have too much weighing on the outcome or we have a desired outcome, we may not always be able to feel in fully. Okay. This is something I learned from a teacher in an intuitive magic class. Her name is Raquel Cohen, very wonderful person. But she did teach me, like, if you're having a hard time tuning in, it may be because you're not neutral. Like you're too attached to the outcome of what it is, and you want it to be a certain way. This has definitely happened for me on numerous occasions, right? And if that's the case, sometimes I ask a friend to tune in for me and see what they're getting. No judgment in this process. Okay. So let me know in the comments what you got and how that feels. And I will say that, like Devin said in her episode, and like I explained at the top of the show, for me, it took 12 years for me to awaken to my truth and be ready to take action on it. Okay. So I knew really early in my career as an oil and gas engineer that it wasn't for me and it didn't light me up. But my programming around having a secure, stable office job is something I'm still working through now that I own my own business. I'm still working through that belief system of, okay, I must have a 9 to 5 in order to make enough money to support my lifestyle. Right. So I wasn't ready to make a change. I wasn't ready to take action, even though I kind of knew deep down that engineering wasn't the right path for me. So with these big truths that we may have in our lives, we probably do, right? It can take time, and be gentle with yourself. If you're not ready to take action, if you're not ready to fully see the truth in certain situations, that's okay. Like, let's practice with little things in the day. So I even practice on, okay, what do I feel like I want to eat in this moment, right? It's kind of a fun one that I encourage you to choose something that's a little bit light and a little bit fun so that we can get in the sense of play with this and it's not so serious. Anytime I take stuff really seriously, it kind of leads to that scenario I was talking about with being too attached to an outcome and forcing things, which doesn't really allow flow or truth. So play around, play. Could be as simple, right, as, like I said, what do I want to eat right now? What do I want to wear today? Right? What do I want to do today? So those are 3 questions I invite you to start working with and start seeing if you can feel that difference in your body, the shift. They can be very subtle. It can be stark, right? Chris had mentioned she gets like big flashing yeses and stop signs, right? So it comes in all different ways. And so play. That's all I can say. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share your experiences, whether they're quote unquote good or bad, right? Whether you got something, whether you didn't, ask questions in the comments. We love to engage with you guys. And feel free to send an email to journeyofyoupodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear your feedback and connect. All right. Have a great day. Bye.